The soul is perfect. The body is perfect. The mind is perfect. The world is perfect. But, however, the human mind has the ability, and it may even be designed this way, to warp reality, to distort the truth about anything and everything, ultimately. And it does all kinds of funny, energetic things as well, which again is all necessary and perfect, but without acknowledging the perception, suffering exists. And human suffering is really what makes it seem necessary, or what drives any motivation to seek spiritual advancement or knowledge or anything like that. You could say it's human suffering that is really like the guiding motivation for that. Humans suffer, and we realize that suffering. We become aware of that, and then we want to stop suffering. We don't want to suffer anymore. So hence the creations and contemplations of spiritual practices, meditation and religion and all that stuff. You know, a lot of it is put in place to comfort our fearful minds. To say things like, which may be true, but I'm not going to claim that right now. To say things like, if you do good things in the world, then after you die, good things will happen, or you will go to a good place. Other studies and practices say that if you're good now, then you kind of purify your life, and you can live in this life joyfully and transcendent of suffering. Now again, it's all perfect, but the perception that the mind can take can distort that perfection and lead to suffering. So now what do we do with that? Well, I think it's good to acknowledge certain qualities, so like the soul is perfect, because I remember in my past, before I had really good knowledge of any of this stuff or awareness of any of it, or had really confirmed it in as a truth within me, I would speak often about like feeling things in my soul, or my soul, yearns for this or something like that. But this is often mistaken identity, with the depth of mind is confused for the soul. The soul is perfect and blissful all the time. It never moves from that blissful state. So that's important to acknowledge, that the soul doesn't hurt. The soul doesn't suffer. It doesn't experience those things. This is important to acknowledge. Something that the soul could be said, I suppose, to I guess you could say feel, but that's not really the right word, is a yearning to connect with life, or a curiosity to experience itself. Hence the material reality, but that's a whole nother thing. But you can ultimately really say that the soul just exists as pure love and bliss. So that's important to know, that any of the other feelings are of the mind, are part of the human aspect, which again is all perfect and beautiful. But to really be aware of what we're experiencing when we're experiencing things. If we're experiencing any kind of suffering, it's the mind. It always is the mind. And to know that is refreshing, because the mind is like, it might seem like crazy and impossible to like remedy ailments in the minds or issues in the mind or whatever, but it's actually kind of like, it's not so bad. It takes a little time, and it takes maybe a little practice for the mind to really kind of become aware of itself, but it's really not so bad. It's really not so bad. And this is coming from me, who I suffered so much in my youth, and before I got into yoga, I suffered so much, to the degree where I just started to begin to like accept my suffering, that it wasn't going to go away and it wasn't going to get any better, and it was just the way that things were. And that's when some relief started to actually set in, was with kind of like accepting all the functions of my mind instead of like resisting them, because that resistance is the mind against itself. And that's, again, it's really important to know all of this. So when we feel, and there's all this stuff that comes up with all of our feelings when we experience life, to have this awareness is like, so it's a part of the remedy, this awareness, the knowledge that this is the way that our minds are, this is the way that life is. Life is designed this way. There's no way out of it. But to have the awareness of that, we have the ability to shift our perception. And if we don't want to suffer, then that's what's required, shifting the perception. And you can say that if suffering exists, if you're experiencing suffering, there's some kind of distorted perception going on. Because with true perception, suffering doesn't exist. Pain is experienced, even grief and things like that. All the emotions are still experienced. They're still there. But the suffering aspect is the mind's distortions of what's going on, and without the knowledge of the truth about reality and the truth about life. That's why like the path of Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, of understanding existence, reality, life, and the way that it is, and the way that it functions, and our place in all of that, is really valuable. Because when we know the truth about the essence of the soul, the truth about the essence of the human, and the relationship with the two, and why they came to be, why there seems to be this duality in all of the world, but we're talking about oneness all the time. Why does it feel like separation sometimes, or all the time, whatever it is? Why is it so much easier to like confirm that there's separation in the world? Because there's me here, and then there's that stuff, all that, everything else out there, It's just the way that it seems. And if all this talk about oneness and unity is real, how come I don't feel it or experience it? These are inquiries that I remember having when I started diving into all this stuff. And it's good to have those inquiries. It's good to, bring those up. And it makes it a lot, again, easier to align with all of this stuff with knowledge, So, that's one of my motivations, to dig and explore, even in just like a curious way of what the scriptures say, and those who like have discovered through deep practices and meditations and self-study, discovered and have offered, through the grace of the divine, who have offered the wisdom that they, attained. It's just such a gift to humanity, and the fact that we have access to all that stuff is such a huge blessing. So anyway, that's like something that's really helpful, is to have a good knowledge base of existence. Because if you know that your mind functions in a way and your mind distorts reality, and that's what the cause of suffering is, right there with that awareness starts to dissolve the suffering. It starts to dissolve, it creates a reality to what you're feeling, as opposed to being absorbed in like the story of why the feelings came up, which is usually false anyway. There's usually a greater depth to our feelings than what we're experiencing on the surface. And it's like really important to know that stuff too. So what do we do with this? And just to keep kind of rolling over it, what I think is important, to know that the soul is perfect, that it's all perfect, but the perception is what gets weird. Our individual perception is where things get weird. They get like kind of thrown off balance in a way, or just start looking at things in a different way, in a distorted way. And again, not that those distortions are even, because it's all necessary. Just speaking from my own journey, all the moments where I suffered so much were part of what seems now to me to be necessary to like break the mind open, so that the light of the soul can get in. So remember, the soul is just being. The soul is just pure existence, pure truth, pure love, pure presence, pure awareness, without anything tacked onto it. There's nothing like placed onto the soul or the spirit that's even really definable. It can't be infinite if it's definable, right? Your soul is eternal, and it couldn't be eternal if it had really any way to describe it. It couldn't be infinite in form and being. It couldn't be one with everything if it was specific. It wouldn't make any sense. What makes the soul seem specific is the energetic imprints of mind that are cloaked or smeared or stained onto the soul. But even that is only like a seeming. You know what I mean? If there's like, for example, if like I'm in this room and there's pink smoke in this room, like if the smoke's all around my body, it might look like I'm pink. This is a weird analogy, but but that's not the truth. It's not even really on me. It's just kind of around. It's just kind of there, but it's, for some reason, it's hovering around that soul. There's something like keeping it there. Or maybe another analogy would be like even like painting onto the spirit, because the spirit's formless and infinite, but just similar to water, when that spirit is put into a container, or when a container, you know, the spirit is like within, which isn't really true, it's just a seeming as well, but when it takes when the spirit is in a body, right, for the time that it's in the body, it takes that shape, but it is in its nature shapeless. And while it's there, the experiences that are carried out, and the mind is kind of this hovering layer around that human-shaped spirit. You know, again, spirit, eternal, infinite, undescribably beautiful and blissful, but while it's in a human body, it seems like it has that shape, just like water in a water bottle. And then the mind creates this kind of like field around that, and there's other layers of self and being and experiencing and all that. And then the experiences that are carried out during the time that shape is there creates like stains and imprints onto that eternal being. And then so it seems like it holds that shape. It seems like it holds that like specific shape with all these individual, it's like painted with all these different colors and all these different forms. I had a vision one time where perceiving my own spirit with all these like writings. It was like these scribbles all over, and of like beliefs and ideas and concepts and all that kind of stuff that the mind has and holds on to. And that's kind of like what happens, and that's what keeps the eternal infinite soul in the shape of human consciousness for a while. And just so like the scriptures say that we have to, you know, something that we can do here on earth, we have the ability to do, is to if we dissolve those concepts and beliefs and ideas, and not to say that while we're in the body we don't have any concepts, you know, ideas or anything like that, but when the mind holds on to them is when they stain the soul, is when they put that imprint on, is when it's held on to, when it's like believed in so rigidly, I don't know if that's a word, but when it's held on to so tightly as mine, or it belongs to me, this is my belief, you know, when we hold that identity of this is my individual perception, when we hold on to that, that's what covers and stains the spirit, the soul. But when we can live freely, again, we can express belief, we can express concept and idea, but inside we need to be really, really completely resolved of it. We need to be completely detached from that. Otherwise, again, you know, there's layers to it. Otherwise, the subtle layer, I suppose, is the imprints on the soul, but then those imprints reflect out and filter out through the body. They can filter out as disease, they can filter out of the mind as mental suffering, and then when we communicate out in the world, we're sharing and spreading those ideas and concepts, and then kind of like infecting others to attach in the same way that we are. So this is like really important stuff to look at. And if we want liberation, you know, if you're looking for moksha or transcendence or freedom from, you know, to liberate the soul, if that's a desire, then that's great. Even if you're just looking for true perception, you know, or if you suffer greatly in the mind or in the body, then it's the remedy is the same, is non-attachment. The remedy is non-attachment, and knowledge helps. And experience is the most important thing, is to have a direct experience of this. So as you contemplate this, as even right now, as this is coming to you, to really contemplate and be with this, the essence of this kind of, I guess this inquiry is really what it is to look at and say, well, is this real? Is what this guy on YouTube and Instagram saying a real thing? To like sit with that and be with that and confirm that this is a real thing, because this is the reality. Again, if all the stuff that I said is true and real, then there's potential for everything that I'm saying to be a distorted reality, and it's really important for you to go to your own silence inside, your own infinite being inside, your own soul, the truth. That is truth, and that can confirm truth, to go into that, to be as that space, to exist as that space, as your perception, and then confirm that this is something that's really going on. This is what I do to confirm things before I share anything. But at the same time, it's really important for all of us to have direct experience of truth, as opposed to just, again, because otherwise we're just adopting ideas and beliefs and we're holding on to them, but to take it in and just kind of like allow it to be there if it resonates, and then really bring it into silence. Enter as that silence, because that's ultimately what we're trying to get to, is our perception stays rooted and anchored in the soul perception, which is love and truth. Ultimately, love and truth are simultaneous. They're the same. Love and truth, God, divinity, it's all the same. They're synonyms. And the mind, again, are lenses and distortions of that truth and that reality. So this is like ultimately what we can say is that I want, anyway. I'll share from my own motivations, is if there is any desire left, it's just to experience life truthfully and to release all illusions, all those distortions, to let them all go. Because those stains on the soul, if they're mental and they're placed onto it in an instant where an attachment is formed, then the instant and the detachment comes. It's like they never were there. That's what's like the trip about this. That's the beauty of this, is like the instant that attachment is fully released, it's like it never existed to begin with. I've had this experience where I've had suffering going on and then really dug into it and really worked through it. And then the release happened so deeply, I couldn't remember at all what the attachment was. Like so completely removed, so completely gone. The memory of it, I couldn't even find it anymore. Completely dissolved, which is like so beautiful. I remember like searching for it. I didn't do that too long because who cares? It's gone. That's the idea. But I remember like trying to remember what it was, because it was so profound. And, the mind anyway was trying to like dig it back up for whatever reason, just to remember, like, to be able to talk about it or something like that. And the mind wanted to claim it and share or whatever. But it was so beautiful because it was not a trace left, and that's the depth. We have to really go to that depth of detachment with things. And if they're important and valuable for us to keep and maintain in our life, because even the stuff that I talk about, a lot of it is, again, it's conceptual until it's confirmed. Like all the talk about karma and God and all this stuff, it's conceptual. It's belief until it's confirmed as truth and reality. And it's important to know that anything and everything that we hold, that we kind of claim as like an ideal or an idea, we need to do so with a detached mind, with a detached way. because it gets really messed up when we attach to it. When we say this is the way that it is. If you've experienced that rigidity or that like defense kind of thing, if there's another idea that's different than yours, because I've experienced this too, where something is so beautiful inside, a belief that's so beautiful that's transformed my life in such an amazing way, that when someone would say something different or challenge that, defense would come through, or even frustration or even anger would come through. I'm like, no, this is the most beautiful, this is the way that it is, this is the way that it is, this is because it is the way that it is for this. But that doesn't mean everybody. I mean, the truth and reality is going to manifest differently in all of us, and that's really important to acknowledge. So it's like, you can even say that the truth isn't actually true it can't be true for everybody. There has to be a variation of it for it to be infinite. If truth is to be infinite, it has to like mold to each perception and like arrange to each perception so it can be confirmed as real and true. And that's where things get kind of funny, and it kind of raises the question of is it possible? Is there a universal truth? And the only thing that I could say about that is silence. Inner silence. The soul's essence is universal for everyone. And that's something we can all experience through meditation, through mindfulness. And the one thing about that is it accepts differences. So all the ideas that I discuss, that anybody else discusses about anything, if we're rooted in the soul, we'll accept all those differences and we won't fight. We won't fight to defend or hold our position as we're the ones being right or true. The soul accepts all and loves all, is in love with everything and everyone in the world, in the universe. So if we're in that space, if we're in love, then we're in truth, then we're in the soul. And pretty much anything but that is a distortion of the mind. This is how we can know, and maybe this is a place we can meet. I'd like to meet there, all of you. I'd like to exist in this way. This is my mind even speaking, Even the mind wants to be free. Even the mind wants to let go of its attachment. It's got habits in place, it's got patterns in place, it's got momentum. But even the mind wants to be free of this, of its own functioning. And this is the way to attach, not attach, but to connect with the soul. Only identify with the soul. Inside. Doesn't matter what it sounds like outside as it comes out of you. Inside, only connect and identify with the soul. And then the mind is the world. I don't mean to say only connect. I misspoke there, but when you do that, you are connected with everything. Because that essence, that soul essence, there's no duality, is present in everything. And everything is an expression within that soul field. The soul is, again, infinite and everywhere. It's not just contained in your body. That's part of the seeming of material reality. The soul permeates all existence, all reality. Meaning it's within and moving through everything that is around. So in connecting with this aspect of experiencing, hi Kiki, we simultaneously connect with everything. And the evidence is clear. Anytime there's resistance, you can come in. Anytime there's resistance, okay. Anytime there's a resistance or a disturbance in any way, to know that the disturbance doesn't happen from the perception of the soul. It'll arise and be witnessed by that. It'll be witnessed by it, but the feeling, when we absorb in feelings, is when we're identified as the mind. So I hope this helps. I hope this steers you to your own center. I hope this confirms your true being to you. I hope this brings instant relief from anything you might be suffering from. I hope this helps you find yourself, your true self. Thank you so much for listening. Namaste.